The Data Chief is a podcast for data and analytics leaders to share their personal stories and insights on technology, culture, and leadership. Welcome to The Data Chief.
Welcome to The Data Chief. I'm your host, Cindi Howson. In today's episode, we will be diving into some of the data that powers a favorite vacation and entertainment spot, United Parks and Resorts. As you and your family enjoy the splash from Shamu the whale, do you know how many fish it actually takes to feed Shamu or these whales? Gavin Hupp does. Gavin is Vice President of Technology, Enterprise Architecture, Data, and Martech, E-commerce and Analytics at United Parks and Resorts, which owns and operates some of our favorite theme parks, including SeaWorld. We'll explore how he balances a data-driven decision-making with storytelling, the unique challenges of theme park data, and the role of AI and agility in shaping guest experiences. Gavin, welcome to The Data Chief.
Thank you, Cindi.
The Data Chief is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the AI-native intelligence platform. Anyone can leverage natural language search and generative AI to explore any data, ask any question, and uncover actionable insights faster. Learn why industry leaders like NVIDIA, Hilton, Capital One, and Huel rely on ThoughtSpot to drive their business on data. Experience the future of intelligence at ThoughtSpot.com.
It's so awesome to be here. I'm really excited to be on your podcast. You're one of my idols, so this is a really cool experience. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining. And we had the opportunity to meet recently in person in Orlando at the Gartner Data and Analytics Conference. So where in the world are you joining us from today, Gavin?
Yeah, I am actually calling in from my home office, where I live just a few minutes from our corporate headquarters in Orlando, Florida.
Okay, awesome. Beautiful Orlando. And so, Gavin, some people might not realize I referred to United theme parks. You recently went through a branding change. Is that right?
We did. So our parent company used to just be called SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment. But last year, we went through an initiative to rebrand our corporate umbrella to be called United Parks and Resorts. And so you'll know us as SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, Aquatica, Discovery Cove, Sesame Place, and then we have a few other regional water parks as well. But those are our big brands.
Okay, and you've already taught me some things I didn't know. I'll have to share some stories from Busch Gardens and, of course, Sesame Place outside Philadelphia. Very, very popular. Gavin, the theme park industry is really a mix of multiple businesses. Tell us a little bit about that and how data powers some of these businesses.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you think about a theme park experience and as a guest or as a customer, the first thing that you do is you're probably going to go online and do some research and then buy your tickets or your passes online. So it's a big e-commerce line of business where we sell our tickets and passes online. And then inside of our parks, we obviously have our animal experiences. We have venues and concerts that we have, so big entertainment. And we have our culinary and restaurants from family dining and full service down to hawking devices inside of our stadiums. And then we have our retail experience where, we have our own branded retail and merchandise, but then we also have some third party like Build-A-Bear inside of our parks as well. And so it's, jamming all of these different businesses into a physical location. It's kind of like city planning in a way. And each one of those areas have different levels of maturity. They have different levels of, obviously, business operations and different revenue streams and revenue models and cost structures. and different, we call our employees ambassadors, but different ambassador skills and capabilities that are needed to run each area of business. And so as you can imagine, each one of those business units creates and utilizes its own sets of data to try to grow that area of the business. But it's all interconnected, and it's all the same guest that is purchasing online or purchasing at our front gate, or going on rides or watching our animal experiences, and then they're having a great experience, and so they stick around for lunch and they buy their all-day dines, which gives you the opportunity to really enjoy lots of different foods. And then they're continuing to have a great experience, so they want to memorialize it with some merchandise and T-shirts and plushies, and so they go to another shop. And so, each area has its own unique needs and its own data that's produced. But taking a step back and looking at the larger ecosystem or the larger system that is the theme park, it's a lot of data, a lot of disparate and kind of unique, and sometimes, unless we do some work, siloed data in those line of business or those business apps. And so, it's our responsibility to identify what the business process is that needs to understand data or needs to be driven or improved, pulling that data out, modeling it, making it accessible and obvious, or drawing out insights to help decision makers and our line of business leaders make better decisions, and ultimately, make decisions, make improvements, and measure those outcomes. And so, it is a bit challenging, but it's really fun and exciting.
Oh, yeah, it's totally fun and exciting. And data and AI in general is fun and exciting, but
Of course,
you add the theme parks over it, it's even more so. If you think about this, so you've described, you have the digital world, you have the physical world as well. You have multiple lines of businesses or services that customers can engage with. How has this complexity impacted your data and AI strategy? Is every line of business really at a different level of maturity and readiness?
That's a really good question. And the answer is yes and no. So, we've been around for 60 years, and some of our parks are newer. But there are some areas that are more mature than others, and some tools and technologies. Some of them are much newer than others, and some of them have been around for a bit. They haven't quite gotten that refresh yet. So we do have different levels of maturity, of advancement in some of our business applications and some of our business processes. So what we have done, though, is work to implement a standard platform for our data analytics to try to get everyone at least on the same playing field when it comes to the data and insights. And that's a long journey. It's not something that's done overnight, as I'm sure you could appreciate, and I'm sure your listeners understand as well. But that is a part that we've really worked really hard on, is centralizing our data, having an enterprise data model, an enterprise approach for integrations. And so regardless of the, how legacy the business application is or how new it is, we have a standard integration and standard data and analytics platform for generating these insights.
Okay, great. So it's centralized. We're going to come back to that point, but I'm picturing the experience from a consumer viewpoint. Is there an insight that you can share that might surprise listeners?
Yeah. So I think from my perspective, and anyone that works in the theme parks or frequents a theme park regularly, it's surprising, or this part isn't surprising, but for everyone else, it might be just how big of an impact the weather has on the entire operation, the entire theme park industry. So clearly, if there's inclement weather, thunderstorms or hurricanes, things like that, the park's going to be closed down. So we're closed. That's for the safety of our guests and for our ambassadors. Park is shut down. But for other days where, it's forecasted for, light rain or some drizzles. One area that we look at is where people live in relation to the parks that they're planning on visiting. And so, if you've made travel plans and travel arrangements, and you're traveling a long distance, a little light rain isn't going to stop you from enjoying your vacation. If you're local, that might impact whether or not people come to the park this weekend. If it's raining, and they just might wait and go the following weekend. And if there's weather that occurs during the day unexpectedly, in Florida, it happens all the time. You have
Yes.
Random showers. Just the impact that has on the operations inside of our park, just as an example with culinary or retail. If you're out in the park and there's some rain, where do people want to go?
Great time for lunch break, or let's shop.
They're going to go inside. So we spend a lot of time looking at and analyzing how much of an impact weather is, and what are some of the levers that we can adjust and make movements on to, one, ensure that we've got a great guest experience, and that we're being efficient with our operations and providing the best opportunity for all.
Yeah. And that best opportunity. So the AI world is changing literally daily underneath our feet. How do you think this will influence the guest experience?
So the way that I think about AI and how it can impact the guest experience, to me, AI really is just another form of innovation, and or an accelerant to innovation. And when I think about the different types of innovations that there's really kind of, a new product or service that is innovative and brand new, and you're taking different ideas and putting them together to create an entirely new experience for guests. And this goes with across the board, whether it's theme park or really any other service type business, where AI can be used to create these experiences. So from augmented reality to, who knows what other types of experiences people are going to come up with, an organization will come up with. But AI can be used in creating that type of experience where you're blending the physical and digital world. You're creating personalization at scale that, I think a lot of folks have been working on for a long time. But I think at the scale that AI can take it is going to be phenomenal. So that's kind of innovative product or service. AI, though, also can be used to innovate your process. So there's innovation in your product and service, and there's innovation in your process, in your business process. And I think that's the area that is probably applicable to many, many, many other companies, where optimizing, using agentic AI and optimizing business processes, using it to streamline your business, decreasing costs and being much more efficient, or creating opportunities for revenue growth, again, through personalization in other areas. So, for us, we're looking at both of those types of things, like where can AI create new types of experiences, and then where can we use it to create an innovative process that will allow us to deliver those experiences faster, more efficient, more effectively. And through the process of innovating your process, you can likely come up with new and creative ways of creating better experiences that we've just, as industry has been unable to achieve in the past. And so that's really exciting for me. We have seen as a world, so much growth and so much change and so much innovation in such a rapid period of time, that trying to look out a few years and ahead is, really exciting, really mind blowing about what we could all do.
Yeah, at this point, I almost feel like I can only look a few months, maybe a year, but not a few years. um, and as you think about bringing agentic AI or AI agents and personalization into the guest experience, um, you collect data in so many ways. From the point that I've made the decision to go on a trip and buy tickets to this theme park to my whole journey while I'm there, what are some of the unique ways that you're collecting this data to create a better experience?
For sure. And yeah, so we're collecting data well before you make the decision. So part of that is, we've got a phenomenal digital team that analyzes our web traffic and web behavior. So they're looking at, every page, every click, what the intent is. And obviously we're doing it in a secure and compliant way, and obviously following CCPA and all that stuff. But so we, and it's anonymized, so we do have a really good pulse on how people are engaging with our sites prior to making the decision. Our digital team is very data driven and looking at checkout behavior, bounces, abandoned carts, what products were there, what was the price point. So looking at all of that with a fine tooth comb. And then obviously we bring it in and aggregate it and make it digestible for some folks. Obviously looking at the purchase behavior of our guests, especially if you're a pass holder who gets benefits and rewards and entitlements that you can redeem. So we see that type of purchase behavior and that redemption behavior, and our teams do a phenomenal job of pulling that in, of optimizing and making the experience better for our guests. Looking at different price points and different revenue management activities. So very, very, very data driven, very metrics oriented in that regard. And then, of course, we do have our surveys that are sent out after a guest visits our park. So we send them a survey and we get their feedback. And we do read every single survey.
Okay.
Verbatim. And so there's also, we actually built a tool to help categorize and create sentiment and have higher level reporting and analytics there. But yeah, we take our guest feedback very, very, very seriously at the leadership level, and use it to make decisions and help with our strategy overall. We care very deeply about what our guests say.
Yeah. So, Gavin, that's probably a good segue to your personal career and leadership in this industry, because you started by answering that question with a Martech view. And so that's just one of the unique skills that you bring to your current role. And you have quite a broad experience and background. Maybe if you want to name a couple of the unique skills that you have honed over the years that has brought you to this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been on quite a journey so far, and I'll continue on that journey.
Yes.
From starting an e-commerce business that turned into a consulting business, and then a software company, and then working through field marketing and e-commerce and analytics, then more kind of guest experience and marketing technology, and then general technology and management. I think my background and just overall outlook is I want to have a positive impact on society and the world, and on my customers and the organization that I work in, and I want to make sure that I'm delivering value, that I'm doing something meaningful and important, and from the marketing background, Martech, it's all about having the right, really, it's about the right product at the right price point at the right time that delivers the right value, that solves the right problem, where it helps your customers do a job that they're trying to achieve. And so that has been kind of always ingrained in my being about how do we solve problems? How do we make people's lives better? How do we have an impact and deliver the thing? And that applies, again, to marketing. That applies to operations and business management, and definitely in technology, because as technologists, it's our, again, responsibility to enable the capabilities that allow your business to make those positive impacts and make those differences. And so I get very excited every day when I see that there's like a big, scary problem or a thing that we need to go tackle, and we're going to go tackle it. And I think, again, having kind of a diverse background in marketing, operations, business management, it gives me a bit of the ability to empathize, maybe a little bit more than others. Because while I haven't maybe walked a mile in their exact shoes, I've done a few laps in similar footwear, and so I kind of have an understanding of what it takes, what the levels of complexity or dependencies there are, and what kind of pressure you might have in your area to either grow the business or be more efficient or be more effective. And so I use that as kind of a grounding and a foundation to say, okay, we want to make a big impact. We want to do great work. We want to work with great people. And we're here to enable those areas. It's not always easy, and it's not always the most fun and exciting things to do, but we make it a good, fun, and exciting.
Gavin, you also referred to having started your own business, and I believe you are a 3-time serial entrepreneur co-founder. And as I think about this moment in our industry, in our world, there's a lot of firsts. It's a generational shift. How do you think being an entrepreneur has enabled you to be ready to say, okay, so there is no playbook, but let's lean in anyway?
Definitely. So, yeah, I think being an entrepreneur, it teaches you risk, and it teaches you that risk tolerance. You understand what your risk tolerance is, but it teaches you that you have to be action oriented. You cannot wait around for other people to act, and you also need to have really good feedback loops, so you can iterate quickly and you can pivot when you want, or when you need to, when either the market tells you, or you make that decision. And so, again, that kind of being in my DNA, I think, has helped, because there's, especially now, but even if you look at kind of the things that we've gone through in just industry overall, you have to be able to sometimes take a lead. And use your intuition and use your instincts and your past experiences to help guide you and to help drive you forward when maybe there isn't a lot of data to enforce that decision prior to making the decision to move forward. And so you have to have high energy. You got to have guts. You got to have intuition. You got to be able to take action and be able to respond when things change and when you need to pivot. But that isn't to say that, being an entrepreneur, being, action oriented and going off with gut instinct and your judgment alone is all that it takes. It does require data, and it requires understanding what needs to be measured after you make the decision. And separating out the noise versus the signals, and understanding what are the key levers that I need to pay attention to and that I might need to pull when I need to pivot. And so, it's initially making that decision, making business decisions with, so you want to have good data as best as you can when you're doing projections and forecasting, but up until that point, it is a guess. You don't exactly know. So you make the decision, and then you measure the impacts of the decisions, and then you try to get a quick feedback loop so you can then iterate, pivot, and change as needed.
Yeah. And as I'm listening to you describe that, Gavin, I'm also thinking about some of your peers in the industry, regardless of title, but maybe they came more from a tech background. You have a unique background of the combination of business and tech, as well as leadership and running your own companies. How much do you think that influences your ability to get the whole leadership at United Parks to be data and AI driven?
Well, I think, we are a pretty large organization with, different reporting structures. And so one is kind of understanding, there's a concept called Conway's Law, which you're probably familiar, and others listening probably are as well, but just for the sake of it, it's how your organization is structured typically determines the communication channels. And then if you're not careful, that will also determine the technology architecture and infrastructure, so that you've got tech supporting one silo. It's basically one of the explanations to how you get silos. You get organizational silos and data silos. And so to become more data-driven, you have to break down these silos. And in order to do that, you have to get people aware that there are silos. And then more importantly, what the challenge is with having those silos. And then kind of bring it all back together and saying, this is a data quality type discussion. And so being able to get data quality and data management in the vernacular and then the conversation with, business leaders is not an easy task, especially if they're, interested in driving the business. They don't really care about, your data profiling or data lineage or things like that. They want the end results. They want to know what's the impact. And so being able to understand what the key drivers are, what key decisions need to be made, and what data is necessary to help support that, and kind of bubble it up and create a story around it has been really helpful in getting some of these really important data initiatives off the ground and moving. It's really just kind of tying it back to what the business and what the organization is trying to accomplish. And is data holding them back, or is data helping them? And then in what way is it holding us back? And then what would happen if we fix that problem? Could you make better decisions? What kind of decisions could you make faster, more efficiently, or more effectively? And then what would that do for the overall guest experience, or revenue management, or cost management? And so that kind of helps us kind of frame up, the bigger picture about why data engineering, data architecture, data management is important, and being able to tell those stories and get that alignment has been really helpful.
I want to come back to a point that you made earlier, that also having the data centralized, available in one place, prevents having these silos. But you also believe very strongly in agility and agile development principles. How do these two clash or help each other?
Yes. They do a little bit of both. Yeah. So I wrote an article for Forbes talking about agile development, and again, just my kind of general outlook on life is, to be collaborative, to provide value to your end users, have open and transparent and honest communication, and deliver results quickly. There's a few others. So we study the 12 principles of Agile and the 4 pillars and, Scrum and all this. Just the essence of it, though, is about really being there for your people and with your people, and having a sense of urgency. And so that mindset can and should be applied to, I think, in all areas, in all whether it's data or technology or marketing operations. Like those are just some good things to live by. When we get into the data side of the house, though, especially when there's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to happen to get your platforms in place, there's a balance in creating those. I don't like to use the word quick wins or the words quick wins, but to provide immediate and quick value and quick benefit without having to go through the full cycle. So one thing that we've done at United Parks and Resorts, we call them skateboards. So there's an agile concept, a principle where, at the end of the day, you need to get movement, you need to get going. And so you can use a skateboard to go from point A to point B. And while someone's using a skateboard, we're learning and figuring out the path and what they're trying to do. And it's just very quick, just get it going. While they're using the skateboard, we're learning and figuring out and iterating and building a scooter. So that way they can go faster from point A to point B. And while they're using the scooter, we're figuring out how do we build a factory that's going to then build cars. And so now we're able to produce at scale the delivery of that value, of that service. So, a skateboard is less than 2 weeks worth of a sprint. And say, okay, there's an immediate business problem. There's some insights. There's something that we need to understand very quickly. Let's swarm it. Let's get it out. We'll try to make sure that we are using best practices and following our data engineering standards, depending on the type of data, whether it's, what the data is and how exactly it will be used. But we try to get something out very quickly that's not necessarily throwaway, because we are learning a lot. We are experiencing and learning a lot throughout that process. But behind the scenes, we're continuing to work on and build out our enterprise data model that will include that use case or that scenario that clearly we didn't think of before. And so now we're trying to incorporate that into our platform, with the goal and the intent that we have flexible and performant data architecture, that we don't need to do skateboards, that we can just include it in and just it's part of our solution. But in times where we don't have that knowledge or that understanding, that experience, we'll build out a quick skateboard.
Well, I really like the analogy that you've used, a skateboard to a scooter to the factory. I think people can very much relate to that. And people are often averse to quick wins that are throwaways. But what you throw away might be, I don't know, some code or some widgets that you built. But those learnings, if you bring those forward, I think we need to shift people's mindsets to recognize the value of those learnings. So it's that start small, think big, scale fast, I think is played out with your factory analogy. If you can share, Gavin, if you can think of an example where giving the teams the autonomy to, let's say, develop these skateboards, can you share an example where this led to an unexpected but great outcome?
So every day,
Okay.
I get fun by saying, but so we have, every 2 weeks we have a sprint review. And so my team, we joke that this is like early Christmas for me, because as a leader, it's my responsibility to provide the vision and the context, the clarity where needed, and the open communication to create an environment where we can do our best work and where we can deliver value, meet the needs of our internal customers and our external customers. And so I do provide quite a bit of an environment for accountability and responsibility at the team level. I'd like to delegate the authority down as much as possible. And I provide some of the direction around architecture and say, okay, these are the guidelines and guardrails that we need to abide in, follow in. And from a cost management perspective, like I'm very, very heavily involved in leading that. But as far as what the team is responsible for and how they go about it, I do delegate and have them come up with the right solutions and work on it. So yeah, every 2 weeks, the team gets to show off everything that they've been working on. And so I just get so excited and then so happy to see like, okay, this is great work. Whether it's a skateboard or new additions to our enterprise data model or a new extension of an existing dashboard or existing data sets or a new integration, happens all the time. And I couldn't be more excited and pleased about it.
How about a time when it didn't work well? And what would you do differently, or what did you learn about that?
Yeah. So with the good, there's always some areas of opportunity as well. And so we've had, not many, but there are a few times where I have to come in and kind of recalibrate the direction and recalibrate the team and say, okay, here's areas that we missed. And again, it's my responsibility, kind of my drive to make sure that we've got the right environment in place and the right folks in place to not make the same mistake over and over and over again. I'll give you the example, though, that we had an analyst who is relatively new, data analyst who's relatively new, and he was working on a problem for a stakeholder, and he was working on it very quickly and got it out fast. But then later that evening, he actually sent a note and said, I missed something. This isn't correct. And so brought it back and said, okay, how did we miss this? Where did this fall out of our checks and balances? But he was able to identify it and brought it back. And the next day I told the team, like, look, we made a mistake. And that's okay. So we did it quickly. We found it quickly. We resolved it. Our mean time to resolution was, very, very fast. And we learned from it. And these are the things that we're now going to put in place to make sure that we don't make this type of mistake again.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. If we shift back to a little bit the combination of AI, technology, and marketing, as your team evaluates and automates what's coming on the market, is there anything that you are especially excited about?
There are lots of things that I'm excited about. I think, when we look at just the role of agentic AI, and the service providers that we work with, I think there's a couple different things. So on one hand, it's, we've got some great partners and great technology solutions that are incorporating AI into their product and service that we're, going to be taking full advantage of, which I think is great. It'll allow us to be more nimble and allow us to be more efficient and more effective. And so, those are things that, I think a lot of folks have access to, which is great. I think it's good. And then, as I was mentioning earlier, the kind of the process innovation, or some of the things that will allow us to reimagine and re-architect and rethink about how we go about business is going to be really exciting.
Yeah. And I said I can barely look ahead a few months, a year tops. You were willing to look further ahead. So if you look out 3 to 5 years, how do you imagine some of these guest experiences or processes being impacted?
I don't know if that's, I don't know. I can imagine, I think this is something that Jeff Bezos at Amazon said, like, don't try to think about what is going to change, think about what's not going to change. And so what will not change is our drive to deliver amazing and wonderful experiences that are going to create memories for a lifetime. That, we're always going to try to, out of creating those types of experiences and memories, to create opportunities for growth and for revenue, and always going to be trying to become, as efficient and as effective as possible. So I know AI will always, well, not always, but AI will play a role in one of those areas with, and I'm not exactly sure where it's going to take us, but it's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah, I often describe that as keeping the why. Your North Star is your customer experiences. That's the why. The tech is just the how, and that's what will constantly change. Gavin, we're going to do a shift to a lightning round now, some fun rapid fire questions. What's your favorite ride at a particular park?
Oh, it's Mako for sure, which is SeaWorld Orlando. It has the first drop, you've got 0 Gs, and then there's 3 bumps where you're just out of your seat, just flying through the air, and it is one of the most thrilling and exciting rides. I love it.
Oh my gosh. So I was going to tell you Busch Gardens as a high schooler, the first time I went there, I was all in for the highest roller coaster in North America at that point in time. I know it's since changed, but yeah, I don't do that anymore.
I'm getting to the age where I probably won't be doing that as much, but my kids are growing up in the theme park and they love it. And so I also love Penguin Trek, which is one of our newer rides where my 6-year-old and I go on it, and he just loves it. So it's a blast.
Oh, fun. That sounds like my style. What's your favorite theme park food?
Yeah, so my kids could live off of Dippin' Dots. So every time that we go, we've got to get Dippin' Dots. It's great. My wife loves funnel cake, and my favorite theme park food is beer.
Okay. After you've been on the ride, clearly. A data insight that you think would fascinate our listeners.
I just think that the role that weather plays on the guest experience and planning and revenue and operations is just really phenomenal. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Do you actually know how many fish it takes to feed any particular whale in a given day?
So for orcas, it's generally 1 to 3.5% their body weight, and so they can get up to 22,000 pounds. But it's 150 to 220 some odd pounds of fish per day. So about 1 a meat.
That is a lot. That's a lot of fish. How about a recent moment that has totally made you laugh out loud, or you can choose something that you are most grateful for beyond the obvious?
This happened actually today, where we were reviewing a data model, and we're looking at it, we're kind of analyzing, and I said out loud, I'm like, "That's a good looking model." And my wife's walking by, and she's like, "Hey," it's like, "It's a data model." So there's little things like that, but I also want to say just how thankful and how much gratitude I have for you. For being as an amazing content creator and doing just awesome things in the data industry. And, there's a lot of great folks too that put out such great content on LinkedIn that I've learned a lot from, that I've taken bits and pieces, and also have gotten to know a few folks where, the Scott Taylors of the world, the data whisperer, the Joe Reese of data engineering, and it's like Malcolm Hawker, like those are just great folks that continuously put out really good, insightful content that I'm really thankful for. That there's a good platform, a good ability to learn directly from people like you and them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gavin. I couldn't do it without you, guests like you, and our amazing team of producers, and of course the listeners. So thank you so much for being on the Data Chief, Gavin.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining the Data Chief as we explore data and AI leadership. To continue your journey, subscribe to our podcast on your preferred listening platform and connect with me on LinkedIn or X at BI Scorecard. If you are loving this podcast, please rate or review it so others can also discover the podcast.
The Data Chief is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the AI native intelligence platform built for everyone to create personalized insights, drive data decisions, and take action. Learn how companies like Lyft, Brambles, and Navan are leading the way at ThoughtSpot.com.